praise all that's holy. There is an initiative to do something about faking injuries. Now, I want Caleb to explain this, and I'm going to explain to you why I don't like it and I don't think it'll work, but I have no better answer, and I think it's a big problem. I've thought about this for well over 3 years, and I can't come up with a good answer. But what new rule has been proposed, Caleb? And I want to hear this. And it's brought to you by Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange, hdknoxville.com. So what is the rule proposal?
So this was at a conference on Monday at the Convention Center in Charlotte involving the American Football Coaches Association. The coaches came with a plan to propose, which was that any injured player would be sidelined the rest of the drive unless a team used a timeout to reinstate the player. A head coach fine, possibly tethered to a post-game review process, was discussed as well. In its very early stages, and it wasn't discussed at Tuesday's meeting. However, head coaches, and we're going to talk about some other things they voted for a change to, but this is one that they were very serious about. But there were some serious debates. Our old friend Billy Napier proposed no rule, just said maybe teams just need to stop faking injuries because, of their own, goodwill, they'll do
that. Here's my ultimate problem. I don't want kids that are legitimately, the difference between hurt and injured is hurt, you can still play. Injured, you can't play. But there are varying degrees, right? It's not black and white. Okay?
Correct.
I don't want a kid out there. This is my greatest fear. When you do something like this, it scares me that a player is going to say, man, if I go down with this knee injury, I'm not going to be able to play the rest of the game. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel stable, but this is the last drive and we don't have timeouts. And then I'm out. I mean, imagine if that were to happen to, one of the all-time great, let's say Al Wilson, when he, that Florida game in 98, there's a couple of drives. If they don't have Al Wilson, like 2 drives in particular, they lose that game. So that's the ultimate scary thing to me, to the point in which I understand that faking injuries affects the competitive nature of the game, but I want the players to be healthy. So given that, I'm going to say, no, don't do this, because guys are going to be injured and keep themselves out of the game. And right now they're told, Tennessee's players included, if you even think you might be injured, go down, and then we'll work all that out. So Caleb, that's my fear. That's my fear.
I understand your point, but at the same time, I mean, does this change anything from like what football used to be before tempo? I mean, players would always, like, if they didn't feel, if it was the last drive and they felt they could go, they were going to try to push themselves to go, weren't they? And I mean, like, typically if you went down because you actually were hurt and you really couldn't get up.
Yeah. And Tennessee's players too are, how guys used to run off and you could see that, oh, he's got a shoulder or a hand, but he's quickly off the field. Tennessee's players, and probably all players at all programs, are told, no matter what the injury is, drop to the ground.
Yeah, they are.
And listen, they're legitimately injured. I don't think there's a lot of faking going on at Tennessee like there is at, say, Ole Miss. But yeah, that's what they're told is to go down. They all hate it because it makes their parents worry on watching it on TV.
And the other thing is, a lot of times players play hurt. They can hurt something. They don't even feel like they hurt something, and they're going to play through it. I think they do that anyway a lot of times, though. I mean, like, look, let's go back through history. Chuck Webb walked off the field on his career-ending injury. I mean,
I remember that.
Yeah, like, I don't think anybody in the stadium, I'm sure you were watching at the time, nobody thought he was done, right? When he walked off the field. And so...
You know, it was weird as we heard it on the broadcast on the drive home. They assessed it really super quick. I remember that was really creepy, and I don't know, kind of put a dark pall on the entire day, which was a win over Pacific.
Yeah, it was win over Pacific.
Yeah.
And by the way,
I just don't like it. I think you're going to have players force themselves to go out there. You're setting a bad tone. You're setting a bad precedent that you should go out there because you're getting paid now and you should risk your body. Well, I'm sorry. I understand they're getting paid and I understand that means max effort. And if you don't like that, go get paid somewhere else. But at 18, 19 years old, I don't think the average person has the maturity to decide, okay, I'm going to force it on this knee. I'm going to get something shot into it at halftime, and I'm going to force myself out on the field because I have this sponsorship that I just absolutely have to uphold.
But see, that already exists. That is totally separate from what's happening here, which is we're talking about within a drive. You go down on a drive. And Dave, I got to be honest, where I'm going to push back on you is, I mean, that's how players did it anyway for 120 years in football. You know, it's only recently where you're taught go down if you feel any sort of injury or hurt whatsoever. Up until that, you think most players, you think in the 90s, you think in 98, Al Wilson ever was wanting to be taken out of a game at all? I mean, Al Wilson was, I'm sorry?
I do not.
Yeah. So if he felt an injury, if he could actually play, he was going to push through it and he wasn't going to tell the coaches. For most of history, if you went down because you literally felt real pain and thought something was wrong. So what type of gap are we talking about here where we're only talking about a select few situations where a player feels pain but thinks they can go. But then what are the chances that the injury is that significant? I mean, that's a very small chance. What are the chances that you're only talking about a situation where a player has a significant injury, but it doesn't feel like a significant injury. It feels fine enough that they can still play through a drive. If it's significant, they're not going to be able to get up. And so, I mean, like that's kind of where I'm landing on this. So I don't know what the chances are. Maybe I'm missing something, but what are the chances that you have a significant injury and it doesn't feel like you have a significant injury?
Say that again.
What are the chances? Like, what are the chances of you having a significant injury within a drive, but not feeling like you have a significant injury?
Well, that's tough to answer, Caleb, because I can tell you from slipping on the ice and separating my shoulder, it goes numb for about 2 or 3 minutes. And so, I mean, I couldn't have played through a separated shoulder because my arm was hanging off of my body. But I can certainly think that injuries like knees that get tweaked, they go numb pretty quick. I don't know if you suffered many significant injuries in that regard, but
yeah, but your knee is like hanging in a certain way where you wouldn't be able to stand up on it, right?
I don't know. I've seen some people accidentally play on a torn ACL. So I mean, I guess it just depends. Back to our poll question, if I may. Vols' biggest problem in transfer portal, not spending enough cash. Vols aren't as sexy. Vols want to build within. They're just fine. 57% say not spending up enough cash. So Vols not sexy, 26%. Vols want to build within 7%. They're just fine at 9%. But Caleb, let me ask you this. Do you like this rule? Is this the rule you would enact? How would you change it? Because I can't sign off on this one. I'm sorry. I think it's better for the competitive nature of the game. It's sad that we don't have enough integrity as a sports society to just do it the right way. But I can't roll with you on this one.
I like this rule. I think I think the risk is minimal. I think the risk of what you're talking about, the situation you're talking about, is minimal. I don't think there's a chance that someone has an injury that they can play through immediately after they feel it. I think they would have to go down. I think they would be carried off the field, or they wouldn't be able to play through it. I don't think there's any chance of them. If it's something that's going to re-injure them significantly, if it's that significant, they wouldn't be. I don't think they'd be able to stand up anyway. So I don't think they'd be able to try to force their way through it. So I like the rule, and I think let's talk about it. This is definitely everything we talked about with Tennessee's offense stalling last year. Have we ignored how many teams faked injuries on Tennessee last year and how much it slowed their tempo?
A lot.